Hello and welcome to IMP's AEW Adventures podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Help the network out by leaving us a 5-star review, give a donation directly through Red Circle, and become one of the amazing community by joining the Social Suplex Discord. The link is in the description. Read the Social Suplex newsletter, shout out to Trish and Tim as always. Listen to the other top-notch shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Wrestling Art with Chris Things, Trish and Sarah, Tunnel Talk, and Sam Brown's AEW Match Guide, of which the final in the countdown of the 64 best AEW male wrestlers finally came to an end this past week after a special with myself, Floyd, and Sam over on the AEW Match Guide. So all 3 episodes are out now. If you don't have enough of me after these quick 30-minute blasts of me going through AEW, each of those episodes are like 2.5 to 3 hours long, so you can have a lot more in-depth discussion about how I feel about individual wrestlers. And I'm certain it won't end controversially. I'm sure that Rich is in the comments for it being all happy with our decision. So anyway, it's a big old tournament in a minute, everybody. It was really fun to record, and we're looking forward to see how everybody takes it. My name is Matt Mayer, aka Imp, and this is your quick look back at the AEW week that was. 30 minutes of spooky Fright night. Ooh. In Edinburg, Texas, a place I have literally never heard of. I read that and went, did they not know how to spell Edinburgh? What is this? Live from Spookyville, with folks in Hallow's fancy dress, full spooky rendition of the theme for Dynamite and all. Good on you, Ruckus. And all your matches, the standard rule-wise, but with spooky names, like a trick-or-treat tornado tag, or the Fright Night Fight. Ooh. How spectacular. And there wasn't any plunder matches with, like, pumpkins and just tables with a black cloth over it or anything, but none of that nonsense. All the matches are, like, they're fun. They're, like, fun versions of matches, but they're still, your standard wrestling rules types of matches. It's like the idea of, they weren't doing, like, a spooky no DQ match. It was just a standard match just with a spooky name. For Justin Roberts to announce as it came out. So, low effort Halloween. They put the effort into the staging. That's where I put all my marks. That's where I put that for. The spooky archway they have with the stones and the pumpkins out on the stage. Like, yes, spooky staging, for me, way more important than spooky matches. Don't know about you. A bit disappointed in the spooky dress. There wasn't really any dressing up for the shows this week. You've disappointed me there, gang. I'm assuming other people are critiquing other things, but with my focus trying to stay on the shows themselves, I feel like I'm in a very unique position to critique the very not important shit like this here. But also, this is proof of a very, low-key, spooky week. There's nothing like major or big to talk about this week. 2 shows that I was glad I watched, that I had a great time watching. But if you were busy on your Halloween week, like, it's like they were the type of shows where if you were busy, like, it's fine if you missed it. It's not like when I'm so used to when I say that sentence from covering the WWE stuff, that when I say that sentence, that means that the shows were boring, that nothing happened on them, that it felt like it was a waste of time. Absolutely not. Not a waste of time. Really fun. Really enjoyed myself. But I think I said it last week that AEW are absolutely fine to have a show where stories and characters don't particularly progress massively, but it's full of great matches, so you just have a solid wrestling card. Like Collision. Collision is very much, there's a big baseball game on, it's Halloween weekend, people are going to be out and they're going to be busy. Bring out the luchadors. just bring out the luchadors to have great matches. So Collision was an absolute banger. Absolutely enjoyed it. So anyway, let's get into it. Let's start with one of those spooky match names. Let's start with the trick-or-treat tornado tag. As a British person, I appreciate the alliteration. A very powerful tool in our country. That's a gag in Ted Lasso, but it's 100% accurate. It's just the power of alliteration in our headlines is mega powerful. Well, we'll play a sound clip from it from Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin versus Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta.
Darby Allin, Scorpion Deathlock, center of the ring. Wheeler Yuta, no choice, let's tap out.
Darby wasted no time getting to the races. Honestly, it was just nice to see that influence for Cassidy. Look what you could be, Orange. You just put in a little effort. Come on, Orange. We laugh at Yuta looking under the apron and just finding a middle finger for the crowd. Awful tactically. He immediately got a chair shot to the back, but sometimes you've just got to hate. He's got to appreciate the hate. He's got to appreciate it. I feel like this was a week for appreciating the hate. A series of from off-camera jumps, as I saw the production, were on one for this show. Cassidy put his hands into his pockets in the crowd when Wheeler just launched from screen left, completely cleaned him out. Darby Allin jumped from the second level of fans onto the waiting lads, and another Darby jump with a ringside Garcia eating an off-the-barricade dropkick, again from off-camera left. Crazy Allin bump off Yuta's coffin drop interruption, landing arse first on the top turnbuckle and flipping overhead to the outside, missing the apron as complete flip to the outside. Any other person I'd be fearing for their safety taking a bump like that, but with Darby Allin I almost entirely trusted he had full control of his body the entire time somehow. I probably shouldn't have so much faith in Darby Allin, but I watched that being like, for some reason I believe in him. Orange got his 2 versus 1 fire, but fair to say it could have gone better as he lay in wait on a ringside table for a Wheeler Yuta frog splash. Great tactics from Darby Allin, probably gave more credit than the Wee Man earned after sliding a skateboard to Garcia as a way to sucker him in for a code red. The baddies were really showing up to be those suckers after too. Blow lit up a bit, but Cassidy dove through the ropes to crash poor Daniel through a propped up table. Darby made Yuta tap in a continuation of Death Riders quitting and tapping out when push comes to shove. But poor Daniel Garcia and Wheeler Yuta. Absolute chumps. Absolute chumps who completely fell for it. Like a fun tag opener. Don't get my slight irk for Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia losing in such a way that just makes them look a bit chumpy. But it was a fun, fast-paced open tag match to start the show. Tornado tags is always going to lead into chaos and go full ringside brawl with people jumping off the screen to do an attack. The fact it was a series of stuff like that as well. There was just a really fun energy about this match. As we do build to Darby Allin following up on his word that he's going to take down the Death Riders. And we'll find out why this feud didn't just end and everybody moved on later in the show. Let's just bash through the backstage bits. There's not many this week. Chris Statlander had a quick minute with Renee, laying down the challenge from Mercedes to Jabba in ring. Bandido, the family man, brought his mother to watch him wrestle last week. He was in the Collision main event, defending his Ring of Honor World Championship. And Tony Schiavone in the same Phantom of the Opera mask he wore on the oldie WCW Halloween Havoc. I think it was Halloween Havoc. I've got the screenshot on my head, but I can't remember a face he's interviewing us. Remember, I think he wore the full cape compared to this week's. It's an old memory from when I dove into WCW. It's not clear. Interviewed Penelope Ford, who be injured. Megan Bain laying the offer for a worthy replacement when Marina Shafir steps up. Oh yes. Mock stepped in wonderfully with an, "Oh boy, oh you better look out." That's my reminder that it's a thin line between Mickey Mouse and Mr. Hanky the Christmas Pooh. Basically the same voice. "Oh boy, I'm Mr. Hanky," and "Oh boy, they're Goofy." They're the same voice. They're the exact same voice. Or at least when I do the voice, they're the same voice. None of that counts as the same. Fight Night Fight number 1 contenders tag team match. Ooh, spooky. Young Bucks versus FDR versus Jet Speed versus Jurassic Express. The Young Bucks taking a match for a potential money match rather than taking a money match. They've got to play the longer game now. They keep losing their money matches. Don backstage interview earlier hyped his family summit, gave the Bucks one last opportunity to join him by showing them he's paid for a grand entrance, music, Tron, the bald man himself giving an introduction with Welly and then all the pyro in the world. Look what you could have, Bucks. But if that opening tag wasn't fun enough for you, I present the ultimate 4-team party. May your Halloween get-togethers also reached their peak enjoyment with a 4-person kip-up spot. Temporarily played off the alliances from the Collision main event tag before FTR and the Bucks reset to their usual disdain. Pretty hot tag for the one dinosaur wrecking crew to Beal and charge. Chokeslam to Matt, chokeslam to Nick, flipping him onto Matt, then Lucha flipped too, and a step-up destroyer off Matt's back to Nick to finish the flow. It's a really fun sequence. But that wasn't my biggest reaction. Perry, up on Bayley's shoulders, who was stood on the apron, then took an amazing Kevin Knight standing dropkick and rotated overhead to the pile of lads waiting ringside. They could see the spot they set up as like, oh, he might dropkick him. And then you just remember how incredible Kevin Knight's dropkicks are. It's just the height he gets on them. The Young Bucks' false finish was far too fast and fun to recall, but the kick, dodging and landing between them and Bayley was bloody fantastic. UFO splash from Knight, big ass to have him pop up immediately to eat a shatter machine, but the lad tried his best as FTR win, and we will now officially get a return to Brodido versus FTR at Full Gear on the 22nd, and we ended the segment with Dax staring down a child. It's becoming a repeat thing now. Find an unhappy kid and Dax will just find them at ringside and just stare daggers at them in a yeah, and what? But that's great work as a heel because, you know, you're not doing that to an adult man, you're doing it to a kid. So you're not really doing something that makes you that big. But yeah, so far on the show, we've had a fun, quick opening tag match. So yes, made the bad guys look a bit like doofuses and chumps, but it was a fun, fast pace to it, chaoticness. Second match, Ultimate Party. So far it's just nothing but good vibes with the show. And then we go into the Caliph's Family Summit. So okay, we've had our fun, now for some drama. 2 tables staged in the ring with a fancy red carpet and room for every lad in Don's most numerous faction. Well, everyone except Konosuke Takeshita, who was conspicuous in his absence. Don addressed it right away, dismissing the myth and passing the jabber to Romero, who said that Takeshita simply had travel issues before unveiling the latest piece of glorious muscle-ripped Callis art. Josh Alexander introduced a VTR play showing what the family's all about. To family cheered at the end. Cal Fletcher tackled the question of why? Why does the family do what they do? A quick funny bit with him reading out the contract each of them apparently signed when joining the family. Kind of absurd, over-the-top language about being loyal and giving over your body for the greater good of the family, which signaled ignored the IWGP Heavyweight Champions arrival, into the ring and immediately stared daggers at Okada. Brewing tension echoed so wide by the crowd in shot behind them, just all stood up and murmuring in anticipation. Callis did his best to simmer the two down by answering the final question of how the family intends to succeed. Well, it's all because they listen to him. He's the one bringing this all together, all working like a charm to get the crowd biting for a Konosuke explosion. Don told the IWGP champion that as he was the first into the family, he will also be the last out, attempting to guide him to shake Big Kazu's hand, before less guiding and more shouting at him to do it. I'm asking you for me, shake Okada's hand for me. Cue the dramatic slow hand out from Takeshita, showing he's willing, but cheeky Kazu extended his hand, then up into a middle finger. Biggest Rainmaker grin on his face as the family all got up between them. Callis with one last roll of the dice as he put the two together in a tag team match to prove they can work together on Collision. So we'll get to that later. But that segment was everything I kind of said it was going to be this time last week. Yes, there could be a big blow up, but in AEW's past they've used this kind of segment to instead really turn up the temperature in something but don't have the blow up moment. And it's coming out of Collision, it feels like that was the right idea. Definitely conditioned for these flows to explode on the big segment, but I specifically was last week I was like, but that's not how AEW have built a track record of doing it. I'll be honest though, I didn't fully commit to the prediction. If I had fully committed to the prediction, I'd be standing here being like, aren't I clairvoyant? No, I've just watched AEW before. But we need to have a little bit of indication of being like, they do simmer things. They do use these segments to pretty much confirm that is what we are doing. We're just not doing the explosion now. So stay invested, please. Like a segment that builds up trust that it is going the exact way you want it to, we're just going to build it up a bit more. Question is this going to be an example of leaving it simmering a bit too long when he could have struck at a hotter point, or knowing exactly what they're doing with blow? They've got both examples in AEW's history. Just like, for example, Hangman is a great example of continuing to simmer for a really ridiculous long time, really giving him a full arc before he gets to his I'll call it big explosion moment. It's a bit sexual, but before we get to that big climactic moment. And a rematch from last week, the conglomeration Kyle O'Reilly versus Jon Moxley. The DQ finish from last week, too hot a flame to be your Mox opener, so instead we're at the crossover into hour 2. Jon had to make a point that he too can tango with the submission after getting caught and officially losing to Kyle last week. Danielson on commentary reminded us of Death Jitsu, which Mox would bring out during the Black Ball combat days, mixing that brawling style with a tad of the submission flows. Echoes of last week again as O'Reilly slipped out of the offense right into a hold. My personal favourite, the Gotch style pile driver, which was slithered free and immediately transitioned into a triangle choke. Again, Mox struggled, caught on the bridge of the nose for a little bit of face blood, but he had to roll to the outside to even have a chance of escaping O'Reilly. And even that saw him caught twice by different traps, including the ending where, after Shafir had stopped the diving off the apron, Kyle wrapped around Mox and started choking him again, right into a countout. And what lovely heat from the Texans. Immediate chance of bullshit as we see the effect rarely using DQ finishes can have if you barely use them and then whip them out. The Death Riders jumped after Marina struck ref Aubrey, then all the conglomerates out for the perfect fix for the issue. Briscoe handed the mic over to Cassidy to tell them, and with his unique energy, blood and guts. So we're basically getting both a men's and a women's edition on November 12th. I was absolutely fine with the women taking ownership of the Blood Cage this year. I didn't need a male version as well. When I think about it, I feel like the men's one is in a position where theirs is way more heated, which I guess is part of the reason why I would be against doing it, because you're doing the first women's one. I would have loved all the focus to be on it just being the women's one, like they get it this year. But now I'm comparing the two, immediately I'm like, well, which one's got the more heat? And at the moment, the one with the much hotter momentum is the men's one. They're striking right after a hot moment at the pay-per-view, whilst the women's one had its hot moment previously, and then they've continued the bickering and the building for it, intertwining it with women's tag, which means that I still feel like there's a lot of strong characters in there. They've got more than enough strong characters to fill out the match, but it doesn't feel like this heated affair between two sides which desperately needs this. The men's one feels like it's got that fire. The women's one, I don't want it to feel like it, like, oh, you're doing the women's one because it's the first one and you're giving a reward for all these special characters to be doing that. Like, yeah, that's part one. Part two would be the story being earned in it. Like, why is Mercedes in this match? It made logical sense in my mind for you to put Megan Bayne in there, but why is she there? Like, on screen, not really seen any specific tying reason for her to really want to be in Blood and Guts to get at them, whilst in the men's one will be given all those reasons for all the characters to want to do it. In the case of Orange Cassidy, I guess my friends are doing it. Orange Cassidy, he kind of just goes along with the flow. But you can see that fire in the men's. But with all that said, my main point stands. I didn't want to be comparing it, and I wasn't calling for a men's one. So even though the men's one feels like it's hit on a hotter moment for them, and Rich was pointing out on One Nation Radio that tickets weren't selling particularly well after they just mentioned the women's one. So was this the reason the men's were added onto it? My immediate assumption was this was always going to be the case. That was my immediate read on it, that this wasn't a switch. This was always going to be the plan. And I just personally preferred doing just the women's. I was absolutely fine. The characters are strong enough to pull it off. I would have liked a bit more focus focus on building up that animosity. But with me being fine with how they've done the tag scene, that does mean that the Blood and Guts match isn't as hotly amped up because you've been focusing recently on bubbling this other thing. Been more reminded that we're doing Blood and Guts rather than really feeling the heat. I think I felt that heat when they announced it. When they announced it, it felt earned, but I don't think they've been able to keep that level of fire. But the other question is, would I even be saying comments like this if I wasn't, in my mind, comparing it to the men's one, which has struck at a much hotter point? Yeah, so does the quality of the build even matter if there isn't an immediate comparison in the men's version? It's hypothetical. I mean, like that. I didn't want to be comparing, but here we are. I mean, I've got no doubt that I'm going to enjoy it. I feel like the women's one is going to be such an entertaining match to watch. And the men's one, if there's a Blood and Guts match with Darby Allin in it, you're already like, oh no, what's he going to do? And you got Bleeder Moxley in there too. And the thought of Orange Cassidy in Blood and Guts is obviously a very unique situation. So there's a lot. I'm not down on actually watching the matches. My critique is obviously about other things. It's fair to say when it comes to AEW, I will hardly be critiquing too harshly that the matches themselves, the booking within the matches, normally that stuff is nailed, and it's the other things around it which I might sometimes critique. Even if I'm still in my honeymoon period where I feel like I'm just blindly enjoying stuff a lot more than my contemporaries. I'm the giggly Englishman is having a good time at the moment. Where am I, Floyd? Yeah. Chris and Mercedes returned from break to a backstage kerfuffle. Mercedes dragged the women's champion out into the ring to display her and Athena working on poor stat as a team. Backstabber from Monet into the O-face from Athena. More beatings halted by Willow and Harley's run out. And what a coincidence, these two teams face each other in the first round of the women's tag team tournament next Wednesday. That was convenient. Excalibur can hype the match now. How nice. And speaking of the tournament, the first women's tag team tournament championship match. Sisters of Sin versus Aminata and Hater. Aminata and Hater both have coats. Now they're a proper tag team. Honestly, a little miffed that this was in the pre-main event spot, but on a card with nothing but hitters. I'm not as annoyed as I would have been on a different week. If this tournament is a big deal focus, it either opens or closes the show, or maybe even halfway point where it's the cross between hour 1 and 2 that we saw with the Mox match. Here, it's just in the flow of the show, like a solid show where every match was a big deal, but the card order speaks. The match itself kind of felt like we were always headed to either an Aminata and Hater win or Tekla interference, with the sisters' longest string of offense coming during the ad break, and the moniker of hardest hitting team getting proven worthy by the goodies, right until the Tekla spear on Haters at ringside, leaving Aminata in the ring to lose via a cool little assisted spinning side slam thing. Sisters of Sin take out Hater and Aminata, which just bubbles your Blood and Guts stuff, and you can highly assume that the inverse is going to happen to the Sisters of Sin in the semi-final, which I now remember when the tournament was announced, it was something I was calling for, and now it's playing out and being like, but I don't think there's a good way to do it. It's maybe my WWE riddled brain. I'm just like, yes, you're doing a feud, have them build it with interference. It is the only way. It is the only way. And onto the main event, the Fright Night 4-way fight. Ooh. Hangman Page's #1 contender for Full Gear. Samoa Joe versus Ricochet versus Hook versus Bobby Lashley. An amazing bit to send us off. But first, we've got a wee wrestling match to talk about. I know. We'll get to the bit you actually want me to talk about. But this ain't WWE, so let's actually talk about the wrestling. Tita's Hook getting him some Samoa Joe was a great start, but actually serving us Ricochet trapped between Hook and Bobby was quite the amazing starter. Don't worry, dinner was coming, but for now there were different pairings to match. We hurt people as Bobby and Hook had their tiff, making Lashley be the second man after Joe to tell the kid to calm down. But in terms of the multi-man flow, Hook's frantic bursts of danger were the perfect break between the big boy beats and Ricochet flips, especially as you want to bubble as Ricochet flips and just have him just fly about in the later stage. Samoan chops for Hook as we return from a break, and my god, the spinning power slam from Joe had an awesome nasty snap to it. Then the biggest cheer for the man doing the casual walk away from a diving Richard. I said the biggest cheer. Joe and Lashley's meat chopping got a huge reaction too. The mighty spine buster from Lashes got so much hype for a lad as large as Joe. Speaking of, Hook's T-bone suplex on Big Joe also looked amazing. Like honestly, all 4 lads came out of this looking brilliant. Even dickhead Ricochet got his moment to fly towards the end. Flips out the ring onto Lashley, then the other side out onto Joe, and finally a shooting star onto Hook. Both of them locked in made Ricochet pay, but that submission focus got Joe's attention, and into the muscle buster he went for a rope bouncing Bobby to spear, and Ricochet to break up the pin with a 450 springboarding off the ropes. Yeah, this main event was great. Ricochet and Lashley both spilled to the outside. A chair shot angered Bobby, drew Hook's focus, and Joe snapped him fast with the Coquina clutch for the win. Lashley made it to the apron a little fast, and he had to sell getting stalled by the ropes. Like, oh, I can't get through in time. Like, wrestling is silly sometimes, and it's all the better for it. He climbs on the ropes, realises, oh crap, if I climb into the ring, I should logically be able to break it up, and he realises that, so he just like, oh, can't get through. Just kind of mime struggling. I wasn't focusing on the pin because I was watching Bobby Lashley's performance on the apron, and I had a good laugh. I love it when I catch the silly in the wrestling. Some people get angry and they're like, oh, that bit took me out of the match. I was like, no, embrace the silly. It's oiled up muscly people fake fighting in their underpants. It's inherently silly. It's inherently gay. Just embrace this nature of wrestling. Speaking of the silly side of wrestling, after the match, the Ops were on out to celebrate with their man and get interviewed by Schiavone in his white phantom mask. When he introduced our Halloween crew here tonight to welcome them on out, and the commentators are kind of like, got collaboration with DC. I mean, weird stuff like this is just going to happen. It's just trying to logically explain the Halloween crew, when really it's them trying to do a fake out that Hangman Page is in one of those costumes. And they were the ones to bring out a contract. A marshmallow man, a cow, chicken, and meat slab? There was a bull and a fellow in a hoodie and a black mask. I guess they ran out. Joe, taking this segment a bit more seriously, I want to make sure I'm safe for this contract signing. So boys, a unique ending to the show with each costume fellow thrown out the ring. The marshmallow man unmasked to reveal it's not hangers. Then Joe called to the mic, Hangman, your days are numbered. Soon you will not be a champion. I will release you from that burden. What stands before you will be your next AEW World Heavyweight Champion. When Tony's voice spoke to toast the moment, and all the lads grabbed a beer for a very weird toast, because it's not Schiavone in the ring, it's Hangman Adam Page disguised as Tony Schiavone. Hilarious, there I was championing wrestling bollocks already. Little did I know. Little did I know. The Ops downed and a bottle smashed over Joe's head for a bit of top of the head blood as Hangman made his statement. Big ol' amped up cheers, and Hangman walks away with the victorious night. Do you call that a babyface victory? It was definitely entertaining. Definitely on the silly side of wrestling bollocks. I'm assuming this bit was talked about loads during the week, and I'm assuming the sides were what I laid out before I even covered the segment, and I wrote those bits as I was watching the previous segment. So it's like, sometimes, wrestling crowds are predictable. Sometimes. Anyway, a show that did bring the drama in the Don Callis stuff, I really love the setup stuff there. Played out exactly how I would want it to, / semi-predicted, but that was in a way of, this is how I'd like AEW to bubble it. I don't need the segment to be the blow-off thing. Had the fun opener, it had the party match, the heated little bubbling feud thing with John Moxley and Kyle O'Reilly, which then heats up properly into their blood and guts match. I guess the only negatives I've kind of got are for the women. Like, the placement for their tag match meant it was just that cooler, but you do need the Darby match to happen before the O'Reilly-Moxley match, which means the O'Reilly-Moxley match has to be before the main event in the logic of my mind. And I guess that's the switch. You want to have the fire of the announcement, and I guess if you have that big announcement and then you have the main event, arguably my working requires entirely different booking for the flow to work. In a way. I'm doing very different booking, and I'm not doing that Fright Night 4-way or something like that just because my card focuses on other things now that I'm logically thinking about it. But yes, a silly night, a fun night. It's a Halloween special. I feel like Halloween specials are going to be inherently silly, which I'm absolutely fine with. If you wanted some serious wrestling, don't you worry. Collision had you covered. Not a single scare or bump in the night or anything on Collision. Just, obviously there's the spooky staging, but apart from that, it's just a night of wrestling. So, we've got our fun little spooky night on Wednesday. So let's jump on over to our serious wrestling show for the serious wrestling fans. Let's jump on over to Collision.
Takeshi's the legal man now. Yes, there was a Rainmaker one. He's going to try one here. And shoved out the wall. Takeshita, forearm shot. Takeshita. 1, 2, 3. Takeshita shoved Okada out of the way.
Yes, our opening match was the tag team match for the Don Callis family. Konosuke Takeshita and Kazuchika Okada versus Anthony Bowens and Max Caster. Why one dysfunctional team when you can have two? It's just that this one is made up of two singles champions, so... Funny little spots showcasing that dysfunction for the former Acclaimed, with both going for an outside dive, but Caster took both down, leaving Bowens looking like a knob, perched up on the corner now with nothing to do. The Callis lads more staring each other down, bumping boobs and giving middle fingers. Bowens and Caster had their flashes, but it was amongst Okada and Takeshita flows that basically countered themselves with near Rainmaker accidents. After one such muck-up, Okada was down for the original Acclaimed slam and elbow drop finish, but that wasn't what Bowens was going for, who took umbrage with the blind tag. He ended up striking poor Caster, and that was all the Callis champions needed. Okada and Takeshita shoved each other out the way to be the one to score the final blow, Konosuke winning out to get the final note and win. Don Callis may be happy, but he had to usher Okada out the ring as the two gave each other such grumpy grimaces of hate. So instead of it hitting an explosion, it's getting more and more untenable for Callis, as he's kind of like putting temporary glittery plasters on it to stem the bleeding, but you're just being told that long term that isn't going to work. I think it's bubbling perfectly. I don't think it's a story that's taking too long to tell at all. I think they're bubbling it at an absolute perfect rate. Positively, as I was talking about the women's tag thing, I do feel like the Blood and Guts one has simmered down a bit. So that one, they had to kind of like keep the plate spinning. This is not plate spinning for Okada to Takeshita. Each week is bubbling it to the absolute perfect next note that it needs to bubble to. There's nothing but praise for that one. Backstage bits. A few more for Collision, as is always the case. Willow and Hardy Cameron cut a wee backstage promo on Athena and Monet ahead of their tag tournament match on Wednesday. You can take the babes out the wrath, but you can't take the wrath out the babes, calling their opponents fake compared to their authenticity. Immediately after, we got a Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa VTR play about standing by your love. Also a Collision with plenty of gay kissing. Said it earlier, wrestling is inherently gay. Lean into it, embrace it. We then got a full recap of Fright Night. Don't know if I needed this. But no, it's Collision, we've got time to fill. A quick hallway interview with the Bucks. Don Callis walked in to tell the two what's next. The first ever $1 million tag match at Full Gear. A trios match with them teaming with Josh Alexander against Jurassic Express and Kenny Omega. They've just got too much money to burn. Tony Khan is in fact too rich. The reveal of the 6-on-6 women's Blood and Guts lineup. Triangle of Madness team with Megan Bayne, Marina Shafir and Mercedes Moné, and they face Jamie Hayter, Queen Amanata, Willow Nightingale, Hardy Cameron, Toni Storm and Chris Statlander. As I said earlier, a lineup that screams, this is going to be incredibly entertaining, but also a lineup that screams, I don't exactly know why you're heated for a Blood and Guts match, rather than the fact there is a Blood and Guts match, and let me at 'em. Which is, no, not quite the heated faction rivalry stories we've been used to. We've not logically added each person to this, it's more, you can see the characters backstage, I can envision it. Toni Storm immediately with the, let me at 'em, I'm not missing out on this. I can see that. Eddie Kingston with Hook backstage after the man's Dynamite loss. They'll team with the Hangman to face the Ops on Wednesday. Then back to the wrestling. The CMLL Women's Championship, Mercedes Moné versus Olympia. With Chris Statlander on commentary to remind us of the bigger Full Gear picture. Spooky Mercedes flexed her muscles at the superhero-sized Mexican lady, which set the comeuppance straight right out the gate, with Moné not long after finding herself on big strong shoulders for squats and then held with one hand overhead. I love the current flow of Mercedes matches, where she starts cocky, gets her ass beat, making her opponent look awesome, then she adapts, before getting her ass beat again and only just surviving in the end. Every last comes out of a Moné match looking great. Back from break for a big powerful spin-out slam, with Olympia also given the room to show off her athleticism as she skinned the cat, making the flip back into the ring look easy. Like, yeah, she's big and strong, but don't forget she's also a luchador. There's a reason she was the choice of CMLL to showcase in this spot with Mercedes. Deep squats again, this time with the crowd chanting along with her. Match number 2, and that's already over with the AEW crowd. But after the action spilled to ringside and Moné threw Olympia into the AEW Women's Champion, who was on commentary, distracted, Moné was dragged back into the ring by the big strong lass, but a big old spinning counter from Mercedes span into the crossface and escaped with her titles once again. Great little display of Chris's effect on Moné, whilst also showing the Ultimo's ability to survive with her championships each and every time. I just think that was excellent booking. It was Chekhov Statlander just sat there on commentary being like, okay, what's going to happen? When is this going to fire off? And the way that it played out, Chris Statlander did shake Moné, did get her attention. She wasn't at her best from that. But then you saw Moné's ability to also, like, every time just survive with her titles, which means you've been told why each woman might win at the pay-per-view without them just, telling it you with words. I mean, with the last rivalry with the Statlander, with the whole Toni Storm thing, like during the weeks we're just talking about, oh yeah, this is what it feels like Chris Statlander's character is. And then the week before the pay-per-view, Chris Statlander in a promo goes, this is what my character is. You've done the thing I praise you for not doing, but you did it after you were subtly building. So it's not like at the gate saying your motivations and things as a character. Personally, I wouldn't do the promo where you explain your motivations. But at least with the Toni Storm one, it was like ground character stuff, which the viewer needs to understand so you can build up more complicated stuff. I feel like with this one with Mercedes Moné, you don't need to spell out the stuff. Chris Statlander just being like, I'm such a talented wrestler, I'm so big and strong, blah, 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 blah. And Mercedes Moné being like, but I win all the titles, I win all the time, haha. We don't need to be told that. We've seen it. Onto a wee tag match. Nixon Newell and Miranda Elise versus Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir. A wee showcase for the badass team, with our very own Rich Latter rapping Shafir out for her solo badass entrance. And always nice to see Wales' own Nixon Newell. Moxley on commentary, I like the spunk from these ladies, which means something very different my side of the pond. But I do like Mox's vibe with Marina Shafir and Bayne's tag team. When he's just watching them, it's just like, oh, bloody hell. He's that noise. Little grunt beforehand, oh, and then bloody hell. That's just the vibe I get from Mox when he's watching them. Nixon caught wanting to kiss her partner a couple too many times, which earned Mox's applause for Bayne as she suplexed both women, all big and strong. Running Liger Bomb from the goddess to Newell, Elise wrapped up in a sleeper for a no-pin breakup. A great little tag match, which is talking about within the adversity, don't forget about love. And also, you will be punished for it though. Just immediately big glass that absolutely destroys. They lost, but their love will survive. I'm focusing on the thing that AEW wasn't focusing on. Yes, I know it was all about the build. It's essentially a jobber match. If you're going to call them back, I don't mind the little character of they just love each other so much, but it is costing them matches. I just love that as a little nothing mid-card story. Like, I'm somebody who's praising the MXM casting call every single week. I want this on my show every week with the casting call thing. Tiny little, it's almost like a little wrestling bollocks, a little gimmick. But if you keep doing it, the joke's in the repetition, or the humour's in the repetition and the enjoyment. But anyway, I thought they were great in their little jobber role. La Faction, Ingo Benabile, Beast Mortos, Drilisico, and Sammy Guevara versus Commander, Mark Briscoe, and Roderick Strong. Sammy's got a wee moustache now, kind of. Worthy of heat all in itself. There's a big baseball game on during Halloween weekend. Bring out the luchadors! Commander danced with all three of the Ingo Benab boys so well that Mark and Roddy were able to just chill for a bit. Eventually the Backbreaker Man got in for a moment of fun, but the poor reluctant faction member ended up being the one to take baddie flow for the eventual Briscoe fire tag. Whispering the Briscoe earned another big reaction, with folks still not ready for his agility. Commander beats Mortos with that amazing springboard up onto the shoulders and into a reverse Rana spot. First time I saw that from Vikingo, I had no idea how to describe it. Jay Driller for the win after a flow of quick broken down knees and strikes from each lad. And I've just praised them, the MXM casting call. Mandan and Mansoor dressed as Taya and Johnny for Halloween. We've dressed up as the sexiest people on the planet, and all four of them pose. I love this gimmick. I say it constantly. I'm all for bollocks in wrestling, and this is utter bollocks and I love it. But who's beating them up this week? It's announced as a trios match. Lights out, guns up, Austin Gunn, Juice Robinson, and From the Shadows Ace Austin. A wee opportunity to watch them dance as a trio for the first time. You know, you've got to get Ace Austin his November booking, but you've done it on the first day of the month now, so, you know, that's your lot. He only gets one big thing a month. A wee opportunity to watch them dance as a trio for the first time. Suplex the wig off Madden, then all the moves for the poor Mansoor. Famouser, followed by Ace's running spinning breaker finisher thing, the fold for the win. And on to the main event. Whoa, what a main event. For the Ring of Honor World Championship, Bandido versus Mascara Dorada. A video recapped the two's match from Arena Mexico in June to tell us why we should be excited. Yes, more of this. We're all wrestle fan nerds, but not all of us are that mad or able to also watch CMLL. I've already said, bring out the luchadors, but Tony. Top tier lucha flow before Bandido's hurty arm proved too much of a problem, and in a flash shifted who our favourite was. Dorada has arm-based offense, but he was too much of a babyface to use it, aka he deserved to lose. With one arm, the champion showed off his strength and athleticism, holding the lad up with one arm, diving through the ropes with enough force to clatter into the announce desk. This might be surprising to hear, but both these lads are pretty damn good. I know, I bring nothing but hot takes. I've focused a tad more on Bandido, but Dorada is also crazy good. A loud holy shit sending us into an ad break after an apron charging Mascara was popped up into a cutter all the way down to the mat. See, they're both crazy. Head scissors reversed by handspring off the ropes, but the athleticism was not awarded as Dorada ate a running Bandido leg instead. Saved the quickest impressive flows till after the final break, like no tornado or shooting stars from Mascara, till we were in those final 10 minutes. And because it's Collision, we really did get that dedicated time for them to flow. And a squeal from a child as Bandido popped Dorada up for a powerbomb. The crowd on their feet after a double boot colliding, chanting fight forever. I'm still in a space where I'm appreciating that chant having to be genuinely earned to be chanted. It's a little more than, good fellow, I'm invested in this performance before me. Crazy Mascara stood on Bandido's shoulders with the man up high on the top rope to slip into a head scissors. No wonder he took a breath before running to hit the move. The scissors caught, rolling through into pin attempts. Bandido's X-knee finally hit after some earlier failed attempts. Sent Dorada groggy to the ropes and the 21-20 plex for the Lucha main event win. Exceptional match. Given like 25 minutes to play out, which on other television you'd be like, wow, they gave it that much time. Well, for Collision, it's like, yeah, it's Collision. It's about the wrestling. But see, none of that spooky nonsense, none of that shit from Wednesday, just good old wrestling. I say that after we got, like, you know, some bollocks stuff, which I obviously enjoyed. But anyway, a fun Collision show as well. Absolutely flew by, as it always does. And as I keep saying, like, Sunday when I watch this isn't always a day where I'm like up for some wrestling. My mind's on other things quite often. I'm looking about like the rest of the stuff I'll be doing on the day. But by the time I finish Collision, I'm always excited for Wednesday again. It always gets me, which means they're always doing something right. Which I feel like is like something like not the most in-depth critique. But if the feeling's there, clearly they're doing something right. Whether I'm able to hone in on exactly what that is, no, I talk about it every single week. Eventually I might get close to something about why me specifically gets that feeling. Anyway, that does bring me to the end of the review. Not going to be a super long one this week. You know, some weeks are going to be like this, but at least we had the spooky when we had the Don Garnis family segment. I had a really fun Ring of Honor main event for Collision. A really solid week in ring. I would say outside of ring stuff in terms of like character buildings and things, obviously the men's Blood and Guts hit on a momentum peak, and the Don Garnis family thing just hitting stride after stride. So I'm still in a really good place, even though I guess like the past couple of weeks have been the first time, so I've started to get a little irk with certain things, even if I'm still overall positive. I feel like that's one thing I'm getting used to, is my bar of critique is so much higher, and I'm not moaning about little things. That my ability to just, you know, actually talk about the wrestling, it's like that's huge. That's huge for me. Yeah, so once that honeymoon period is over, and I'm like, oh, I'll get good wrestling all the time. I'm just a grumpy critique guy. I don't know if that'll ever happen. Anyway, as always, I say thank you for engaging in any manner. Always appreciated. Never take you for granted. I'll be back this time next week to talk about I think it's the final show before Blood and Guts. So I'm assuming we'll get more setup, we'll get characters interacting, we'll get multiple women running out and clobbering. We'll get a little bubble show next week before the big bloody affair. Now, what do you think about it? I'm having a little whinge about, are they like, yes, Matthew, embrace the hate. You get in there. A good week for embracing the hate, like I said at the start of the show. Because also with Okada and Takeshita, just Okada, absolutely no, fully embracing the hate with Takeshita at every opportunity and doing it with glee. Just like, yes, I absolutely adore that energy. But I'll be back this time next week, so thank you again for listening. And with that, I bid you adieu. Ta-ra, ta-ra.